Thanks for joining our latest webinar about how hackers are using AI and, more importantly, what we can do about it. In 2024, a finance employee at the company Arup, and I'm sure you've heard of this particular tale, joined what they thought was a routine video call with their CFO and some other senior finance executives or members of the finance team. Following instructions from the call, they then subsequently analyzed 15 separate transactions across 5 different Hong Kong banks, and the company lost $25 million in this transaction. But what I'm sure most of you will be aware is that every single person on that call, other than the finance employee, from the CFO down, was an AI-generated deepfake. And it does seem to be considered by most commentators out there as a watershed moment in AI-driven attacks. That's where the theory became reality for the first time. So welcome to this new reality. My name is Chris Butler. I'm the Resilience Director here at Databarracks. So we're going to look through today about how hackers are starting to weaponize AI, the scale of the threat, and it's growing fast, and critically, for I think everyone on the call on this webinar, what can we do about it? Now, you'll see a tab on the side in the webinar where you can start to ask questions. We'll try and pick up on those at the end of the session. I'm going to talk for about 30 minutes, I hope, on this topic, and then we'll look to answer you can ask and I'll answer as best I can any of the questions that you put in there. So please feel free to do that throughout. When I say this is real, this is how real this has been. North Korean hackers exploited ChatGPT to generate military ID cards as part of a very sophisticated phishing-driven campaign, which obviously would target the South Korean defense industry and defense institutions. And they managed to, abuse real-world generative AI to really conduct what is effectively nation-state espionage. They managed to manipulate the various prompts in ChatGPT to bypass the normal controls and safety measures that you'd expect to create these forgeries. And actually, as we maybe have experienced ourselves, with not a lot of technical skill. So this is yet again an evolution in tactics at this scale, at this level, at a sort of a geostrategic level, we're familiar with around what North Koreans and other nation-state actors are pursuing. So this is where you start to see AI techniques combined with traditional attack vectors, in this case phishing, to try and then deliver malware thereafter. That was part of their campaign. So you may also have read that North Korean workers over the past couple of years have equally been posing as IT consultants, using and leveraging their AI tools to be able to create fake resumes and get jobs in the West in industries across the board. That employment both brings back money to North Korea, but also acts as a vector for espionage. So really, it is a real and present threat. If we try and contextualize that then, and how this is evolving, just generally in terms of the use of AI in companies, and in questions, you may think, where has this taken or been taken in your companies? And you can see some of the numbers here, where the scale of how organizations are expanding the use of AI into cybersecurity operations and more broadly into operational efficiencies and effectiveness. AI machine learning transactions in enterprises surged 3,464% last year, that is 2024, with 536 billion transactions logged. This is exponential, but that gives rise to some serious concerns from cybersecurity practitioners and experts. A lot of that traffic was blocked due to data leakage concerns and compliance risks, and I'm sure that many of you are facing those challenges yourself as well. I know that we are. So it's not really a question of whether this AI revolution will transform cybersecurity. It already has in practice. So how are you going to be using it? Are you using it to be proactive or to defend? And are you using it to defend against those who are also using it to attack you? And the answer clearly is a combination of all of those. AI isn't really just good or bad. It changes the way we do things. in a significant way, and we'll try and explore some of the ways that that is true in this webinar. So some of the sorts of threats that you might see or have been evident in the what you might call the Hackers AI Toolkit are these. These hackers no longer need large teams or big budgets to do this. With AI, a single attacker can operate like an entire criminal enterprise. And these are some of the threats that have been seen out there already. Much better phishing emails. AI is very good at generating these convincing messages, and increasingly we're getting worse at spotting the ones that are driven by AI. And any of you who've got sons or sons or daughters who have got them at university may have also encountered some of the challenges that universities are facing. And if you're in HR, you might find HR having to deal with a plethora of AI-driven or written CVs and covering letters. They're getting better and better. So deepfake frauds are also really easy to generate. Like in the Arab case, which I mentioned at the start, video cloning can replicate voices from just a few minutes of audio. And in that Arab case, what they did was they downloaded publicly available video and audio of the executives in Arab from YouTube and corporate websites. They built AI deepfake profiles of the CFO and others, and they conducted significant and extensive research into the company structure, again, all of which is available online. And then they set up the receiving infrastructure, including the bank accounts, to receive the monies that they were receiving. They had really thought of everything. It's much easier with AI, which accelerates it all. So AI is also very good at being creative and can up the ante on ransom notes. AI is starting to prove capable of cracking captures more effectively than humans, and that's bringing down the barrier, if you like, between the bots and our systems. And they're becoming too sophisticated to be distinguishable by us as human beings. There's a recent case I read about where somebody who's a senior executive in a company was shown a deepfake video of herself, and she herself thought she couldn't distinguish it from fake from real. So that's where this is going. It absolutely is not theoretical. A recent Zscaler report, which is quite interesting in many ways, but this shows you what could be the day in the life of a AI-driven cyber criminal. So you've got the Lockheed Martin kill chain on the right, which some of you may recognize, but this is how an AI-driven cyber criminal might operate. Use AI to scan LinkedIn and build out target lists. Clearly, that can be much quicker through the use of that technology. Start to then create those personalized spear phishing emails. Using AI can crack passwords much more quickly. Clearly, that's a rapid increase on traditional methods of credentials attacks. It can then start to develop malware and write the variants in real time. And again, that's been seen for real. You can move around networks to identify the crown jewels, the data that they're after, how they're going to get them out, and then steal them. All that within a day. And in previous iterations, if you like, that would have taken a lot longer. So it's accelerated. This threat is accelerating because this is what we're seeing in real times. What's called polymorphic malware. This is AI-generated malware, is able to shift and change its code in real time, dynamically, when faced with the defenses that we put in place to start to evade the signature-based detection systems that we're all putting in place. This has been seen for real. Adversarial AI analysis analyzes security responses in real time and then adapts its attack methods mid-breach to be able to counteract the defenses. Traditional security measures are designed to catch known patterns, but these AI tools can create entirely new patterns, and effectively it learns whilst it's acting, and it feeds that back into its own cycle to become more effective next time. There was a known strain called prompt lock, which hasn't been seen in a live attack, but it has been identified by ESET, which generates malicious scripts in real time, which makes every single infection really unique and much harder to detect. So that's, again, another example of the kind of things that we're facing. And some of the tools that you will see out there include these. Now, I haven't got any personal experience. I hope you're pleased to hear that. But I have used online platforms such as Synthesia to create videos, and some of you will have used those similar sorts of platforms. They are incredibly realistic, and they're actually incredibly easy to use. You can use these off-the-shelf tools in about 45 minutes to create a video for training purposes, which is the kind of thing that most of us might have experience of it than using these proper ethical platforms. But of course, those platforms can be customized for cybercrime. And there are variants that you can buy as software as a service on the dark web. And the thing with the commercial platforms that we're familiar with, they will have ethical designs and constraints built into them. And I found that with Synthesia. It will not let you do certain things. That doesn't exist in the dark web. So there are a range of tools that will be developed and continue to be developed, just as businesses in our world continue to develop AI and custom tools for our use. Some recent examples, and some of these have been back in the press recently. The Anthropic Claude code. The recent report. It was I first identified a few months ago, but then in the last 2 to 3 weeks, this has been out in the news again, where they confirmed that their platform was indeed weaponized to write malware and help target that attack. I've mentioned the prompt lock just in the last slide. As I say, that's not been seen in a live attack yet, but the worry is that it will be at some point. So these are examples of where even the current tools that we might all use can also be used to target companies like all of ours. This is where it gets different, because traditionally, obviously, there are the armies of the state-sponsored hackers or the loose groupings such as Scattered Spider, people who'd be able to get together and work together and share information together on the dark web. Whereas now, the reason this is now different is that this can be industrialized at very low cost. One person can, with high levels of skill, can develop a huge range of tools. The software adapts and learns during attacks. It can be very personalized, very tailored to the individual circumstances. Be really difficult to identify for a normal employee who doesn't have the more significant levels of training that cybersecurity specialists might have, or the researchers might have. And when you're faced with the speed at which these attacks can take place, it's relentless. It's really difficult for our employees to be able to counteract this if they're not much more aware of the differences in AI-driven cybercrime, because it is a fundamental change from 2 years ago, never mind 5 or even 10 years ago. So I hope that kind of gives you a bit of a flavor for why what the AI cybercriminal industry is, which direction it's going in, what it's using, and the sorts of challenges that we're going to face. But of course, you need to really think about, how we're going to deal with it. And it may sound counterintuitive to say that actually us, the people, humans, matter more than ever in these sorts of circumstances. So whilst AI attacks have those qualities that we've just sort of gone through, just discussed, of being faster, unpredictable, come from different directions, and complex, you still need human beings to be able to counteract it, but supported by AI. The fact is that incident response teams are going to be having to deal with this more frequently and possibly after the fact, and you're going to have to be able to manage those decisions in real time, but possibly even faster than before. So what does the human element look like in a crisis? Well, fundamentally, you need to be able to have people who understand how these things can affect companies. You need to think about how you can prepare your leadership for those, because they'll be making different types of decisions supported by your defensive AI tools in a range of different ways. The types of communications might be will need careful thinking and might be different to the way you normally respond because of the pace and the speed. You might have to be reacting a bit more quickly, and you've got to think quite strategically when faced with these challenges. So when you've got to be resilient, you've always looking to practice your teams, but what you need beyond that is this to bring in this much more refined approach, thinking about how you respond to those AI-driven attacks. You've got to be much more adaptive when you're looking at solving these challenges. So, how are defenders starting to fight back in these circumstances? It isn't all doom and gloom, despite what my first set of slides might have suggested. We are, of course, equally as proactive collectively, at least I hope most companies are, at considering how to bring AI into their arsenal. And these are some of the stats. So it is being adopted widespread, with having significant impact as well. And we're now seeing 75% of organizations embedding AI into their threat intelligence programs, for example, which is very much looking to counteract those threats. 80% of security teams are seeking to have AI fully integrated into their security platforms. And there is some evidence that organizations using AI are able to save a reasonable amount of money per breach, and this is again averaged out across the board. And the way this is working is that AI is helping to automate our responses and become more efficient, which then frees up time for decision making and the strategic approach to responding and recovering the business. And using AI can significantly reduce analyst workloads and by 25% or even more by handling the routine to allow the humans to focus on the complex areas. And there is some suggestion that this should generate a reduction in the number of incidents if the proactive use of AI drives better behaviors and responses. And one particularly strong area of use is in the area of data loss prevention, where AI aware or AI with AI underpinning DLP, this has blocked many violations of data loss, where people are perhaps using the various codes and AI chatbots and risk leaking financial data, source codes, personal data via those tools. So it is also helping to reduce the amount of data that could potentially be lost as well. And this is starting to be really encouraging, and I think this will continue to grow as people understand how helpful and how useful it is, as long as it's fully and properly integrated. Some examples of some of the technologies that have been developed this year. So one is Google's Big Sleep AI agent. So this is the first tool developed by Google, which is there to autonomously detect and prevent cyber exploits in real time. So it is a collaboration between Google and DeepMind and its security research team. And basically, it's looking to try and find those vulnerabilities that haven't yet been identified before the hackers get in and exploit them themselves. So it's kind of automating the work of human security researchers. AI can also generate self-healing networks, which is the automatic detection of faults, of attacks, or indeed system performance issues, which can create vulnerabilities. And if supported by AI, these systems could then reconfigure themselves, reroute traffic, or repair themselves without human intervention, clearly at that initial level. It can also accelerate crisis response. And after an Australian breach, there's an AI protection platform was deployed in one day, and normally the time it takes to deploy those platforms and get them up and running is a lot longer than that. And I mentioned data loss prevention. This is, a critical challenge for companies, either through intentional actions of a cyber attacker who's looking to steal your data, or through accidental actions such as the use of chatbots, ChatGPT or Claude or whoever, where the risk is of data being exposed through the use of those platforms. So agentic AI is being used in data loss prevention, and what it's driving is it's not just looking at the content of data, it's looking at the context in which it's being used, and it can also be used to monitor shadow IT. So it's trying to put together a more nuanced understanding of how data is used, where it's sourced, and not just the contents of a particular email, which is where the DLP may have originated. There we go. So where is this going then between the partnership between us and those using and these AI tools? Like I said, the growth in AI is significant, but that requires AI policies and guardrails to be put in place. This is about increasing the productivity and the utility of our teams, not about replacing people. I think that is, whilst there's lots in the press about jobs being lost, actually from a resilience point of view and a cybersecurity point of view, it's about enhancing and amplifying our abilities as resilience professionals. And whilst you might think or have read about, generally AI is your tireless junior analyst, that may be true, but it clearly needs to be designed for our contexts as well. So what might this actually look like? If you're thinking about it from the position of an AI augmented SOC. So the AI would start off by triaging all of your alerts and then being able to bring forward into a threat briefing and a threat report, say the top 50, classified by however you've chosen to classify those. So that's a very good example of the automation element that this can bring. So it brings reports of the most critical threats to decision makers much more quickly. That then allows visibility of those prioritized threats, which means you've detected them faster. They're reported in a much more clear way when you're cutting through all that noise, and then allows you more time to analyze them and decide as the humans in the chain what you would then need to do about it. So this is where you've got to think about bringing together both us and technology to make this work, and not look to just replace everyone with AI. But this is the paradox that we're facing, is how to do that appropriately. So how do we defend against all those attacks whilst also being mindful of the risks that AI introduces? Now, one of the first points I made earlier around blocking machine learning and data loss prevention transactions, they can be blocked by enterprises, and especially the challenge of shadow platforms brings that risk ever forward. So you need to bring your policies into play here, and make sure those policies and the governance allows the correct use of AI in your organization. It's difficult when people are so keen to use the likes of ChatGPT and others, but actually understanding how they work and what the security parameters around those sorts of shadow AI uses are in your organization. If employees are using it, do they know how sensitive data may be being handled by those platforms? Do they know where the data is actually stored? Which territory are they in? What are the GDPR implications of that? So making sure that you've got the relevant policies and guidelines in place, the relevant security controls in place to make sure that you know how these platforms are using your data, where the state saved, and how it's secured. And you can see some of the statistics there about people's use of different platforms and where they're being blocked by enterprise-grade security systems. That will give you an area of understanding. And then where do leadership take this ultimately? Because most people trust AI. Most cyber leaders in particular will trust AI outputs, but it's not infallible. At the end of the day, we're unlikely to hand over full control, but we also need to understand whether the outputs of AI is credible and effective, and whether it's hallucinating, which is obviously a theme that's been widely published about as well. How do we know when we think a platform might be agreeing with us, and how do we know when it's actually just, it is in fact actually giving us that correct answer that we're seeking for, and that trust is a critical part of it. So what that requires really is to make sure that you've thought about the strong governance frameworks that will be needed that really encourages innovation, and this applies across the board for your operational activities as well as your IT and cyber security. How do you balance those two things out? And that's the real challenge for businesses. So what does this mean that we're going to be looking to see in sort of this, into next year as well? We're going to see much more use of AI-powered social engineering. Another example that you may have read about, and I certainly did recently, was where some hackers using WhatsApp got onto a call with a member of Ferrari's leadership team, pretending to be the CEO of Ferrari, using WhatsApp, because that's easier to break into than enterprise level systems. And it was very convincing. They even had his southern Italian accent down, but the recipient of the call was suspicious, so asked the CEO whether he'd read the book that was recommended to him the previous week, and the hackers disconnected the call straight away. So these things are going to continue to get really difficult to identify from first pass, that first glance, that first look, and especially if people aren't attuned to what deepfakes can look like and what they'll be trying to do, and the pressures that those AI-driven deepfake type attacks, I think those will definitely become indistinguishable from reality. Password attacks are going to accelerate because those AI algorithms are becoming very efficient, and obviously can work a lot faster. And this is before we even get into any conversations about quantum computing, which could even accelerate it further. That's not one for today. There's a view that security measures and such as capture will become obsolescent as any form of useful measure of verification. So other tools will be needed, because AI will be able to pick that one out quite easily. And that Lockheed Martin cyber kill chain can be automated from front to back, all the way through, and accelerated too. So that's effectively enhancing how the hackers might use AI to make our lives more difficult. But what does it mean for us? Well, actually, we need to become a lot more proactive and more predictive in our cybersecurity and our defenses. And it's not just about being reactive. It's going to have to be a complete switch to being much more proactive, and using AI in the same way that hackers do to accelerate their attacks. We should be using that to enhance our approach to zero trust architecture and make that standard in organizations. Automated threat hunting and response will also be much more capable, and will be kind of the minimum that you need really when faced with some of these cyber attacks, and working out much more quickly who your adversaries are, what they want, and how they might respond. That's going to be another minimum requirement. And the way that human teams at different levels, from your incident management teams down to your cyber response teams, how the collaboration happens will kind of define how you succeed at the end of the day. So there are some 5 actions. These are the first 2 that we recommend you should think about taking and implementing to start to be ready, if not already, which is starting off with the fundamentals really, which is making sure that you've got those basics, the foundational security elements sorted out. And it's still surprising when you read about organizations that haven't implemented things like multi-factor authentication, because that's absolutely the first thing that has to be done to make the AI password hacking capabilities much less effective. That's just sort of standard. But also, I think bringing in security awareness training about AI specifically, you use use cases for the deepfake attacks like Arab, or I mentioned the Ferrari CEO use of WhatsApp. There are more and more examples of this happening, and use those examples to incorporate those into your security awareness training. They need to be able to understand or recognize when something might be being enhanced by AI. Much easier to say than do, but an important element. And secondly, then to really think strongly about your governance and create those tools for AI usage, create those policies, the frameworks. There is no point in banning it, because people will always work a way around it. If they've got something that they find easy, that makes their life easier, don't ban it. Make sure you understand how to incorporate it into your policies and processes. So you definitely need an AI usage policy. You should definitely look at data loss prevention, which is one of the bigger risks. So monitor what data in particular is being sent to and from AI platforms, but also implementing general AI-aware DLP that can look at the patterns that underpin your data movements and data transfers. And then make sure this has all got proper oversight by relevant teams in your organization, especially around decision making. And then furthermore, the three other areas to think about are encouraging or developing the use of defensive AI tools within your security platforms. And I think more and more we're looking at analyzing the effectiveness or the incorporation of the AI capabilities within these platforms when we're coming to commercial decisions around what we buy. Focus on automating the routine activity to really allow your teams to add the real value that they can bring. The brain remains the most complex computer out there, and you use it better by automating that routine to allow them to think through some of the more complex threats. And then thinking ahead about the possible threats that are around the corner that haven't hit you yet. You can still use AI to be able to get on the front foot when it comes to threat hunting. One very close to our hearts is around testing and rehearsing, practicing and exercising your responses through regular tabletops or more demanding simulations. Bring in AI-specific scenarios around use the Arab example is a good one. What would you do if? How would you respond? How would you notify? How would you verify these demands? Do you have code words for being able to validate requests? How can you help your teams to first of all, to recognize the pressure they may be put under, but then to have the mitigations in place? Make sure that both sides of the technical divide understand what the other's perspective are. So this incorporates bringing your business continuity and incident management teams together with your technical teams for both IT incident management, but also cybersecurity. So they understand the elements from both sides, bring them both together in these responses and rehearsals. And practice that decision making under pressure, because you won't really get that time when you're dealing with a fast-paced AI attack. And then finally, the human is at the heart of this, not the AI platform. It's just an enabler. Always think about how you'd verify human to human especially under those pressurized situations. Empower your staff and the culture in your organizations to challenge decisions and create that, what's called psychological safety. If they think there's something not quite right, you really want a culture where people will challenge and question if they think something isn't quite right. And think about the communications in that sort of scenario as well. How would you generate the relevant communications quickly? Because you can't leave it, you can't delay crisis communications if you're under a cyber attack. So if you like, what's our perspective? prepare for the worst, think through the threat modeling, rehearse all of your plans using AI-specific scenarios, enhance the resilience of your technology, and assume that you'll be targeted by AI-driven threats, and bring everything together. Integrate your responses. AI isn't just attacking your IT or your data; it's attacking your business, and that requires decisions to be made. It's by people, by your leadership teams. So the final takeaways, if you like, are this. So this is happening now. This isn't theoretical. It's actually happening. We've seen this in several different ways. These are live operational threats today. Those who get on the front foot will be in a much better place than those who don't. And the question is really, it's not whether you're going to use AI, it's whether you're going to use it better, faster than any potential adversaries who might target you. And thirdly, it's not just about the tools. Humans are fundamentally part of it. AI does amplify capabilities, but the humans provide that wisdom, that context, and actually the ethical oversight as well. So, the future of cybersecurity isn't humans against machines. It's humans and machines against humans with machines as well. So that's where we are. So with that, that's the end of my talk. The future is already here. The only question is how quickly will you adapt? And we now do have time for any questions, if there are any in the chat. I can see one. I'm just trying to read it. Well, yes. So the question is, are the statistics in the presentation how defenders are fighting back? Are they from internal studies or external analysis? They're from external analysis, but we do also run our own data health check as well. I have got sources. If somebody wants to email me with questions, and I can provide sources that way. Are there any other questions? Good. If not, I'd like to thank you for your patience and your attention. I hope you found that both interesting and illuminating. I'd be delighted to hear from anyone as to what they're doing on their own AI-driven journey in their businesses, both from a general productivity point of view, but also from the resilience perspective. There's a lot of developments in this area out there, and it's a journey I think most of us will be focusing in on in the next 12, 24, 36 months as these things evolve. So I wish you the best of luck in your journeys, and thanks for joining.